And now it's time for us to welcome our final speaker. We certainly not the least. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jagath Munasinghe. He obtained his doctoral degree from the National University of Singapore. He is the professor of town planning and also the head of Department of Town and Country Planning, University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka. Without any more delay, Mr. Munasinghe, I invite you to the stage, and now we are all ears for your presentation.
Okay, thank you, and also very good afternoon to all of you, and please cheer it up because the last presentation is going to be, because I know that for the whole of last 2 days, you were having a lot of heavy stuff about spatial planning, master planning, and maybe theories, concepts, and policies, and so on, bit of a heavy stuff. But as Bruno said, that maybe at the beginning, Bruno said that was the main course of the kind of the meal. So take this as the kind of dessert, because it's not that heavy, right? And also, just to add to Afa's kind of reminder that World Town Planning Day, it's today, and it's celebrated all over the world. And also, I don't know whether UN Habitat and the other organizations, the government of Japan and the government of Indonesia, thankful to all of you. And let me ask whether it is purposely organized for this particular day, or was it accidental? I don't know, Bruno can answer for that, right? Maybe it's rather accidental. Oh, both of them. Okay, fine, that's fine. Because it's very important, because the theme of this World Town Planning Day today is to learn globally and apply locally, right? So which we are trying to do now, right? So it is very relevant and timely that we have this event today, right? And so as I said, so all this heavy stuff that we talked about so far, and I'm sure that all the presenters, to be with your conscience, I believe that all of you have presented and talked the truth, nothing but the truth. Because to me, it seems that what I'm going to present now is not necessarily kind of very ambitious and very well organized kind of planning situation, which you have presented in your places. I mean, your plan seems to be very ambitious and very well organized and well kind of drafted, and they're kind of very futuristic and all, that's fine. Okay, we also had a situation like that, but my presentation will be a bit of about the harsh truth about it. So what had really happened with this national physical planning in Sri Lanka. So before going into presentation, let me do some promotional work as our African colleagues did with Kenya and Uganda and all, right? Sri Lanka is a bit of a nice place. I mean, a lot of touristic kind of attractions, and it has a lot of historic monuments and nice sites and also beaches and the wildlife and very nice people like me. Right? Smiley, no, right? Okay, fine. Right. So you're welcome to Sri Lanka one fine day. So let's get into the presentation. Okay. Now that yesterday, day before yesterday, when we had this site visit at Nusantara, okay, there were some guys talking to me very nicely about asking about Sri Lanka and so many things that we had discussion. But at the end, they asked the question, where's Sri Lanka? Okay. Okay, fine, I know. Or even though the kind of name is a kind of big rapport, I know that many people do not know where it is. So just for your kind of reference to understand where it is, right? So we are about, let's say, not very far from each other compared to the global context, but the connectivity is not that much, because even to come to this place, I had to have through two different transits at different places. And so this is where we are just behind, just kind of to the south of India. So that's the kind of best reference that we can make, right? So, and also thankful to the organizers. This is the second time that I'm attending this conference, because in the last time, next slide please, right? Can I use this instead? Right, okay, fine, right? In the last time in Kathmandu, I have presented the background and the kind of making of this plan, which is a kind of bit of a story and also kind of a lot of information, and also what had happened to the plan also was presented at that time. But I'm starting from that. details of which also will be repeated in my presentations at a later stage. But to go ahead with that, is this working? Right. Right. Parallel to this national physical plan, so this is the second update of this national physical plan, and Sri Lanka is one of the countries that had, in the South Asia at least, had a kind of a national physical plan prepared in late 1990s, and the 2007 was the kind of very first plan was gazetted. And in 2017, there was a need for update. Of course, in 10 years' time, just like it was happening in Japan and the other places. So the plan has to be updated in 10 years. So it was updated in the 10 years interval. So it was there in the, it was gazetted in 2019. So parallel to that, there was another development that's happening. This Millennium Challenge Corporation, this is an American organization, who came in support of Sri Lanka for the development activities, proposing three main development activities. First one is to kind of to sort out the Colombo's traffic jam, okay, to support the kind of sort out the Colombo's traffic problem. Second one is to kind of construct a kind of outer circular highway. And the third one is the most critical one, that is about this formation of a land bank for Sri Lanka, right, okay? So this was the kind of a hit at that time, which had led to, okay, so many I would say, right. So the National Physical Plan was also taken into that as part of this people's protest. And they were saying that this is part of this American conspiracy, right? So it was regarded as, it was always shown that you can see the big protest was going on throughout the country. And they have seen this as the development. Even you do not use this word corridor now, because corridor was a kind of a buzzword at that time. They said it's an American corridor. So they were saying this America, this is, they couple it with this Millennium Challenge Corporation proposal, and to show that this is an American proposal, so the American troops will be kind of marching through from Colombo to Trincomalee across the country, and there will be kind of lands acquired by these, the America, USA, and this is how it is interpreted. And it's partially political, because you can see this last president of Sri Lanka. He has a point in his political, right, in his manifesto, he had taken this as a kind of trump card, and he has presented this as one of the things that has to be, he promised to kind of change the national physical plan that was gazetted in 2017-19, right? So he came up with a kind of alternative, right? And then he, immediately after his election, as the president, he had appointed a team and also has assigned this task with this National Physical Planning Department to prepare or revise the National Physical Plan, which they started doing, right? But what happened after that? Okay, none of the things that was there in the National Physical Plan 2050 were kind of being adhered to. And as a result of that, you can see, okay, the government had so many challenges. So that was the start of economic downturn in Sri Lanka. So the borrowings, foreign borrowings for different development activities, which were not planned necessarily, it was rather going up. And as a result of that, our foreign reserves have been depreciating a lot, and the currency is kind of devaluing a lot. So all these things have led to a kind of a disastrous situation where the country was going through a kind of very difficult time. And in order to kind of meet the kind of financial gaps, this government was printing money. The inflation was going up, and as a result of that, there was kind of scarcity of goods, and people were kind of in long queues, and the kind of petroleum products which we import from the other countries, of course, from OPEC, we had a kind of long kind of a scarcity, and it was a very difficult time that the people were going through for the last 2 years, starting from 2019, from the time of the election of this new president and the government, and up to 2022. And it was, okay, aggravated by this COVID-19, the situation that went throughout the world, but it hit Sri Lanka very badly because this is a coincidence of this economic downturn. And people were kind of having a very difficult time, and the businesses were kind of not doing well, therefore a lot of unemployment and declining household income and increase in poverty during this period. You can see the significant kind of, look at the statistics. It shows that Sri Lanka has been kind of from the lower middle income level to kind of going beyond the line that is toward the kind of poverty level, right? So this is what the Sri Lanka was experiencing during that time, right? So what happened was, in addition to that, there's another thing that's happening because most of the developments which were not very well planned, very ad hoc in that way, the president says, okay, the plans are not required, just like Margaret Thatcher's time in UK, okay, planning is not required. All the planners were kind of very disappointed, and of course none of the plans were kind of in place, and they say, okay, developers has to be given the chance. Investment is the first thing that you have to do, and all that. Okay, lands were given to different development like plantations and the hotels and so on, and a lot of disasters were following, right? So the landslides and also the floods and so many other things, right? In addition to this COVID-19 effect that is kind of going through the country, right? So next to that, then naturally, there was a kind of public uprising. It is Aragale is the term that is added to the dictionary. I believe after this situation, I have never seen this kind of a big congregation of millions of people kind of got into the streets and kind of surrounded this parliament and the presidential, we don't call it palace, president's house. And so this is a kind of big commotion. And also it was a kind, we're going through for about 1 month. And it has made the government, the president and the prime minister and the government to kind of resign. So that is the very first situation that we in Sri Lanka, like sometime back in Philippines and even in Indonesia sometime back. So this was the situation that we have experienced very recently. So this led to another kind of government, a caretaker government to be appointed, which is there now. So even though the plans were kind of disregarded or kind of shelved, now we can see this, is it working? Right, okay, sorry, too fast. Okay, so the new president, the caretaker government has appointed a committee, a parliamentary subcommittee chaired by a kind of well-experienced people and well-worthy people, and to look into the kind of short and medium-term programs related to the economic stabilization, which is a requirement at that time. So the committee has come up with a proposal which included 19 strategic directives. At the end of this 18 and the 19th one is a silver line in the dark cloud. That is said, no large-scale project should be commenced and no capital expenditure should be made outside of the national physical plan. This is a kind of very kind of encouraging and kind of a good news for all the planners and also kind of for the general public in Sri Lanka, right? So this is still there, right? So this is why it's important for us to understand the importance of national spatial planning because it is regarded as one of the reasons why the country was going into this kind of a disaster, right? Right. Then with that, let's look at what this National Physical Planning Department had done afterwards, right? So the story continued from that. Okay, so the process that is followed. So this is very well drafted, which is very well kind of specified or the kind of prescribed in the National Physical Planning or the Town and Country Planning Ordinance, which was amended in 2000 to make the National Physical Plan. So this process is followed. Usually it takes about 1 to 2 years, minimum of 1.5 years. So this is this process that is followed. Now it is in place. So the main guiding policies remained intact. Even the new kind of committee that is appointed for this one, the National Physical Planning Department, the new Director General and all, they found these are the kind of policies anyway, right? So first one is the conservation of the critical and unique resources. Second one is the promotion of the livability of the human settlements that is in country. Third one is this promotion of the utility of available resources and the kind of infrastructure, not to invest anymore on that. And third one is to kind of explore the potentials and enhancement of their use. So anyway, I believe that in every country, when you try to kind of make a national physical plan, maybe there are ones that you can add. These are kind of essentials. So they'll stick to that, and let's see the kind of analysis that is followed. Right? Why Sri Lanka needs a national physical plan? Okay, if you look at statistics, you may find even though Sri Lanka is regarded as a lower middle income country, and look at the Human Development Index in terms of literacy, in terms of life expectancy, in terms of the other mortality rate and all that, you look at them. Right? We are par with any kind of upper middle income country or the developed country per se, right? So that necessarily leads to urbanization. We can understand, even though Sri Lanka's official statistics and the world population statistics show, we are one of the least urbanized countries in the world, right? That is because of this definitional. So Sri Lanka is somewhere right, it's coming, right. It shows we are one of the least urbanized countries, right? Somewhere. But this is a real question to us as well. Is that true? If you come to Sri Lanka, those who have visited Sri Lanka might find, okay, this picture doesn't show the real situation in Sri Lanka, because in Sri Lanka, you may find, right, good part of the, I believe I need your help. Doesn't seem to work. Right, okay, fine, this is okay. Please go ahead. Right, okay, right, this one, right. Now statistics, official statistics show that Sri Lanka's urban population is less than 20%. But is that true, right? So this is something that we questioned in the university, because the universities play a big role in this kind of research and other kind of activities in supporting the planning agencies. So this is something that we did. And our research shows that, which is not the case. We got this urbanization as a way of life, which is Louis Wirth's kind of big, kind of well-known concept. Having access to urban facilities like water supply, drainage, and the kind of municipal solid waste collection and all that. Second one is these people, those who are leading urban lifestyles, like for example, having their kind of main source of income from non-agricultural, non-plantation sector, and having urban aspirations, because I mean, they learn to become engineers, architects, and doctors, and planners, and so on, not to become the farmers who live in rural areas anymore. So these are the real kind of urban aspirations of the people. So these are the real indicators of becoming urbanization. And what we found was, at the end, not that everyone is 100% urban, and not that anyone is 100% rural either. So everyone is in between. There's a bit of a continuum. And you can see the kind of findings it shows. In Sri Lanka, less than 0.5% of the people are more than 90% urban. That can be regarded as a kind of co-urban kind of characteristic. And you can see more than 7% of the people are more than 70% urban, right? Rest balance of things may be kind of rural. They still have rural characteristics. And you can see 50%, okay, 26% of the people, right, as it's shown here, 26% of the people are more than 50% urban. So if we take as the line, we can see about 26% of the people are already urban, right? But the important thing is not that. We can see, when you look at this cohort, this is a kind of continuing thing, because as I said, Human Development Index, which shows their education level and everything. So it shows the people are kind of elevating themselves from being rural to the urban service sector. And it shows that this cohort, remember this was in 2012 statistics, and now it's already 10 years, and we can see that 40% of the people, it's about 42% of the people have moved themselves into the upward cohort. That is, in 10 years' time, maybe 2030, we may understand that about 80% of the people will be already urbanized, right? So this is the kind of situation, irrespective of that whether living in urban areas or not. We may be living in kind of rural areas, so-called, but still the urban lifestyles and the way that they kind of do things is very urban in that way. That is the real challenge, because which is what we call the hidden urbanization, right? And that's why. So this, the curve will be moving like this. In next 10 years' time, it's very likely we have more than 50% of the people urbanized. And where do they live, right? Look at this map that is appearing now, right? So next slide, please. Right. Okay. So this one shows, according to the statistics, these are the areas that is regarded as urban. But look at this other one, that is people, those who are more than 80% are living in kind of very small area, which can be, right, much more than that when we think of next one, right? Next click, please. Right. People more than 70% urban are living in a kind of a big area. People, those who are more than 60% urban, next slide, next click. Right. And finally, the one I told you about, the people, those who are in the lower cohort, those will be moving now towards the upward cohort, right? Where are they, right? Next, right. They are everywhere. So this is the kind of challenge. So they are everywhere. So that means we will be having urban population living everywhere, even in so-called agricultural areas and so on. It's very difficult to kind of define that because it's a small place, as you know. Mobility is very high because very good transport network, very good kind of road network is available. So mobility is not a big question. So people still kind of commute every day from very distant areas into the kind of to Colombo and the other places for their work. And they go back into their places, and also they live kind of, maybe agriculture is their part-time job, right? So this is how it happens. Service sector and everything is working. So this is why we need to kind of arrest this urbanization into a kind of a contained area, because very first principle, as we said, conservation of the critical, because we have a lot of areas which are either agricultural, which is required for this food security and all that, and also the areas that is very covered by these forest reserves and these nature conservation sites, there are archaeological conservation, there's are watersheds and everything. With all that, next one please, right? We can see, right, the areas that is suitable for development in terms of conservation. You can see good part of them in red and pink and that color, and the ones in the gray color, it's only about 12% of the areas free from any kind of conservation requirements, and therefore can be developed for further developments, right? And if you go to the next requirement, right, next slide please, right. In terms of leading future urban areas for this most livable areas, right, in terms of availability of water and the infrastructure and the climate conditions and the floods and the other kind of disasters, and the areas that is more suitable for people to kind of live in, right, next, right. So this shows, the dark color, blue color one shows that it is the ones that is most suitable for next future kind of human settlements, and the ones that is in the light blue color shows the ones that is not very suitable for human settlements on the future, right? The least encouraged areas, right? Next one, right? Next one. Available resources, the human resources, which is the kind of most critical one in Sri Lanka, because as I said, Sri Lanka's level of education of the people and the literacy and all this is very high, and trainability is very high, right? So this shows the kind of 10-year gaps, the way people kind of migrate into different areas. Migration is not very kind of significant compared to the other countries because it's a very small area, as I said, but still, people, those who are kind of living in different parts, population increase and decrease in different parts of Sri Lanka, right? Next one, right. So it shows when people are having tertiary education, not the primary and secondary, which is a compulsory thing in Sri Lanka, compulsory for primary and secondary education is the law and the kind of a policy in Sri Lanka. So the tertiary education is increasing, become popular, and with that, people will not be kind of going back to this agriculture and those kind of activities, and mainly they will be kind of looking for jobs in the service sector, IT and all that, right? So with that, the other things that is the already invested infrastructure. So in order kind of, for most of this infrastructure are based on the borrowings. I mean, we spend on borrowings at sometimes of at the commercial rate, as I showed you at the very beginning at the slide, right? So we are in a big debt. And if we will not make use of this infrastructure which is already invested upon, so it's a kind of a waste. So we have to optimize the utility about it. And also about the things like water resources, we have to kind of depend very much on that, where it's available, right? Easily available, right? Next one. Accordingly, these are the areas which is shown in brown are the best areas that can be used for this development in future if we want to optimize what's available to us, right? Next one. The last one, about the potential which has not been harnessed so far. Of course, as I showed at the beginning, there are a lot of touristic attractions which are not being kind of used so far. And there are aquatic resources throughout the island, right around the island we have the ocean, and which is not kind of being kind of harnessed yet. And also mineral resources and human resources and so which all that, right? If we want to capture all that into our development, so these are the kind of the areas or the kind of things that we can think about, right? And finally, when you put all them together, even in this time, right? Next slide, right? What they have proposed, okay, they wanted to show a kind of change 2050 to make a change 2048, but it's the same, right? So when you can compare it, next click please, right? Right, compare it with this 2051. Even though it was totally shelved and totally rejected and totally protested and kind of going, came back with the same proposal again, right? Which shows, right, however much you try to do it, you get the same answer at the end, right? So maybe they have followed these kind of principles, spatial strategies, resilience, because this is our theme in this part of the session today. Resilience against natural disasters, resilience against the man-made disasters, and now resilience against economic disasters as well, because in order to kind of have the economic development, so that is what is required, right? Right. Next click, right? So conservation of the natural reserves, and also what are the resources, and make use of these urban areas, and also optimize this available infrastructure. That is the only way that we can get out of this situation that we are in now, right? So with that, right, next one, please. Right, so they have proposed certain economic development areas. We will not use this corridor word anymore because we have already had a lesson with it. And therefore, next one, that is next slide, right? Right. So urbanization also is proposed to be contained in the same area that we said, even though it's a corridor, we don't use the word, right? Fine. Okay, fine. Right. Finally, so the lessons learned out of that, all of that, what had happened in Sri Lanka, the story that had happened in Sri Lanka since then, when we had the National Physical Plan. Okay, stop, right? So National Physical Plan, so the spatial plans can be tools, as we said, of course, but they're double-edged, as we know. They can be very nicely told, as you said, okay, can be kind of very ambitious, and they can be shown as a kind of very big, nice tools to achieve national development, true enough. But it depends, I mean, how do you use it? I mean, it can be used either as a kind of to kind of cut the cake, and also you can use it to hit somebody, right? So it's a very, there's a kind of side to that kind of side as well for that one. And therefore, they can be used to kind of either to achieve the resilient, safe and sustainable territorial development, or else to disrupt harmonious and existent developments that can take and also kind of change the governments as well. It was so powerful to that extent. That's what we learned from this one. But the plans can have multiple meanings, although we think that is unilateral, or we think that's kind of it has a universal meaning. But they have a lot of kind of multiple readings, and they can be kind of interpreted in different ways. But still the narratives can be incomplete. And also, finally, the lesson that we have learned is, even though they can be kind of contested and kind of shelved at different times and can be tested, I mean, it shows that its efforts and cost and the knowledge and the information are worth, because it seems that Sri Lanka's example shows that it's coming back again. Right? If we want to have a development, if we want to go back to the kind of want to count out of this economic recession, this is the only way. So it will be used at the right time. So don't worry. I mean, even though we think that most of the things will not work, maybe there's a time that comes for it to be kind of used, and it will be in use at the right time. So that is the kind of thing that I want to tell at the beginning from my lessons that's learned out of it, right, finally. Okay, and to tell you that, okay, just a kind of arrive, okay, fine, developments in planning in the past is a history, of course, all these things can happen, okay. And also developments in future without planning is a mystery, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And also, therefore, planning for developments in the future is a necessity, but not an option. So this is something that we have to learn, right? Sri Lanka's example show that very well. And also, final click is, okay, final click, that is, thank you for your patience, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jagath Munasinghe. It is exciting to discover thought-provoking ideas, because it reminds us that high-level planning could be a double-edged sword. And yeah, planning can shape different narratives in communities.